You I hope you took like all of that South African knowledge that I stop laughing that I buried in your brain
Mm.
in applied aquatic and terrestrial ecology
You're right.
and
It's not
used
laughing
it
out.
and
No,
used it to impress people.
so the like one of the first things that happened when we were driving in before we got to where we were staying is there was this big tree, and my wife asked me, she goes, "What kind of tree is that?" And I said, "Lacey, I'm not in North America. I don't know what kind of tree that is." It was a marula tree, come to find
Yeah,
out.
yeah.
But I have no clue what tree that is. But yeah, she was trying to hit me with some forestry questions right off the bat. I was like, I'm out of my jurisdiction over here. I don't know what I'm looking at.
Well, Lake Pickle, welcome to the Blood Origins podcast. I believe you've been on before, haven't you?
Yeah, it's been a while, but I
Been a
have.
while. Been a
Yeah.
while. You are no longer at Primos.
Not full time. I
You
still
still
do.
get to go hunt.
That's the one. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah. So yeah, well, I mean, I'll go. We have a elk hunting trip here coming up in mid-September. So yeah,
Dang.
yep.
I went on an elk hunt last year, cow elk hunt.
I had some.
Filled the freezer, baby.
Yeah, look, man. I told like I have been fortunate enough, and I haven't killed an elk all these years, but I've been company of people that have killed elk, and I ended up with some. But I've had elk in my freezer for the past decade,
Mm.
and I was like, and if I ever, I haven't had to, other than like if my wife and I wanted to have like a steak night or something. Other than that, I haven't had to buy beef. I've been spoiled.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, so
Are you
I'm
hunting in September or are you just behind the camera with someone?
I'm hunting. Yeah, I'm hunting.
Nice.
Oh yeah. I love that elk hunting, man.
Man, one day I'm going to get in my travel schedule right now is just ludicrous. But
Yeah.
I have to make time to hunt. Like I have to.
Oh yeah, you absolutely do. Yeah, I mean, man, like you got to you got to set yourself free with activities like that every
Yeah.
once in a
If
while.
only I knew people who go elk hunting, in September, it would be a lot easier. Too funny. Too funny. So look, yeah, I wanted to have you on specifically. It's going to be a short, sharp conversation because
Mhm.
I obviously you are American, full-blooded redneck Mississippian. Maybe not the redneck adjective. I just added that on.
Yeah, that's fine.
Am I? Is it? Just tell me when I'm wrong here.
I mean, the a lot of people get that redneck stereotype from Mississippi. I try to veer away from it a little bit, but I hear where you're coming from.
Country boy,
Sure, sure, sure. Yeah.
cut your teeth on whitetail, turkey, duck, you name it.
Squirrels, rabbits, yeah.
Never hunted. Have Let me ask this before Primos, because I know
Hmm.
with Primos you went and hunted New Zealand, right?
Correct, yep.
Anywhere else international with Primos?
No, that was it. That was the only international trip.
Big old flight as your first international trip down to New Zealand.
Yeah, man. I self-medicated. I took a NyQuil like soon as I got to cruising altitude, I
Start downing some NyQuil, yeah.
oh yeah, I went
hmm
out.
But you hadn't thought about hunting outside the United States.
I had thought about it. I hadn't thought about it practically. Like it lived in my mind. I mean, Africa specifically
Yeah,
had
yeah.
lived in my mind as like a destination where I wanted to end up, but I never allowed myself to get far enough to actually like taking steps towards it. I was like, maybe
hmm
I'll do that someday. You know what I
hmm
mean?
hmm I'm going to jump to this question first and then we'll rewind. Have you already started planning your next South African trip?
We started planning that 3 days into our while we were in Africa. Yeah. Yeah.
So, so that's exactly what everyone does. Because as I try to explain it to you in class, just giving you just a little bit of a taste, a little bit of a window into what South Africa's like,
Mhm.
it is something that gets under your skin.
Very much so. Very much so.
So how did you even start? Like what you were like, all right, I'm going to do this, and then it happened, or what?
So it quite
Oh, stop,
literally.
stand by. Let's before you answer that, because I do a horrible job of introducing people, Lake Pickle.
Yeah.
Who are you? What do you do?
Oh, yeah. So my name is Lake Pickle. Born and raised in central Mississippi. I have spent the past decade in what would be commonly referred to as the hunting industry. I spent 9 years working on the video team at Primos Hunting. Now I still do some video stuff with Primos, and then my full-time job now is working with OnX Hunt, working on the marketing team, a lot of video stuff, social media stuff there. So still very plugged into the hunting world, so to speak.
Outstanding. Outstanding. So, South Africa comes through what avenue?
I'm serious. It fell on top of us. Was not planning it. Very good friend of mine, Austin Sills. He and his wife are good friends with me and my wife. He called me. He asked us if we wanted to go to a Ducks Unlimited banquet. Just
Okay.
quite literally last minute.
Yep.
And we go because if I'm being really honest, I didn't want to go. I was like, it was a weeknight. It was last minute, but my wife was like, I haven't seen Lenny, Austin's wife, in quite some time. Let's do it. So we went. They get to the auction part. They're auctioning off these hunts. I had seen this same trip get auctioned off at a different DU banquet in Madison County, Mississippi, for a lot higher bill. And my wife and Austin's wife start hitting us. They're like, "Are you hearing the price for this South African safari?" And so it was way too cheap to let slide. And so next thing you know, we bought a trip to Africa. Uh, and that it kept, because I wasn't planning it at all, but that was in like November, and we went in July, and so that whole time I started binging every African hunting YouTube video I could find,
Right.
just getting ready for it. But that's kind of how it started.
So, and this happens a lot. There's a lot of African outfitters that use Ducks Unlimited banquets, NWTF banquets, Whitetail Unlimited. Good safari, plains game hunt. What did you buy? You bought, was it 2 animals, 3 animals?
So it was 4 animals apiece between me and my wife. It
Okay.
was
2 hunters.
2 hunters. Yep. You could get it was like either a blessed buck or an impala, a blue wildebeest or black wildebeest, depending on where we were going to be, warthog, and then a management animal, depending on the property we were on.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for instance, when we got out there, they had a overabundance of female water bucks. So that was the management animal, was water buck females.
Yeah. And again, let's give them a big plug now, and we'll give them a plug later. Who gave the hunt to Ducks Unlimited?
Kuche Safaris was the name of the operation.
You're saying it like a Mississippian. Kuche. Kuche.
Yeah. How would you say it? Yeah.
It depends. Were they Afrikaans guys?
Oh yeah, very much.
It would be interesting. It's not a very Afrikaans surname, but it's probably Cooch. How did they say it? Did you hear them say it?
I thought I heard Kuche, but I am very much from Mississippi.
You definitely didn't hear them say Kuche. Anyway, Kuche Safaris, Kuche, out of South Africa.
Mm-hmm.
And you bought it.
Bought it. Yep. Bought it, booked it, and then it was like one of those things, like, well, I guess we're going hunting in Africa. So, like I said, it was just a whole time period between here and there of just like, being like, oh man, like I'm actually doing this. And then, quite honest, like, so Brad Ferris, who I still work with at Primos, loves hunting in South Africa. He's been over there like 5 times. And he was like, who through his experience was like, look, man, I know you bought this, 4 animal package. He's like, I'm telling you,
but
plan for more.
Correct.
Like, just do it. I was like, okay, and thankfully he did. So, I mean, like, we did plan for more, because it was like one of those things. It's like, how often am I going to get back over here?
Sure.
Even though I am planning on going back, but it's just
sure.
Yeah.
Did you have any preconceived notions about South Africa? Prior to you thinking about going, whilst you're leading up to that, you're like, man, I don't know.
I had heard I had heard stuff all over the spectrum, and like preconceived notions, like from when I was a kid, right? I mean, like, we all watched The Lion King. You know
Right.
what I mean? And so there's a lot of the animals from over there, not just through Lion King, but just through the movies that we see over general. There's animals that get very personified. Um, I didn't know, and also, man, I tell you where another notion came from is like zoos. Like you see all these animals in zoos, and they're like the first time you see this wildlife where they're supposed to be, like where they're native to, was an entirely different experience. Um, I didn't know. I didn't know what the hunt was going to be like. I was like, are we going to be driving in a truck the whole time? Are we going to be sitting at a water hole? Are we going to be stalking? There were all these questions that I just didn't. I wasn't. I was very curious. I
Mm,
guess I wouldn't
mm.
say anxious, but I was curious of how it was actually going to play out when we got over there. Does that answer your question at
Yeah,
all?
yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. Obviously, a lot of people have misperceptions around South Africa, right? Oh, mud huts. You don't have tar roads. Did you drive out of Joburg to where you were going?
We did, yeah. We were hunting the Limpopo River Valley. Am I saying that word right?
Yeah,
Limpopo?
Limpopo.
Right.
Yeah, you did
Yeah.
well. Well done. Well done. Well done.
Yep. So we were.
Um,
Yeah, go
how
ahead.
did you the highway from Joburg to Limpopo? Amazing, right?
Oh yeah, and so that does kick me down a different thought. I'd heard that Joburg was like this sketchy city, and you
It
gotta
it is a very sketchy city. It
eh,
is.
that I can't. But like it was pretty. Like I thought it was gonna be a dump. If I'm gonna
Yeah,
be,
it's
if
not a
I'm being
dump. It's a good city. It's a
yeah.
normal American. If you think an American city, that's what you're gonna get.
Yeah, it was pretty, man. Like it was pretty, and then I mean, like we got picked up from the airport right when we landed at like 9 a.m. And so we got to see the city when we were driving out. We did like the second we got out of Joburg and got on some more like less trafficked roads, we come around this curve and there's like 15 baboons standing in the road. And what truck full of Americans were like, "Oh, oh my gosh, baboon!" And the PH was like not at all impressed with the baboons, was actually rather disgusted with them. He was like, "Ah, these dang baboons," you
Mm,
know.
mm.
We did figure that out. They were not a fan of the baboons over there.
Sure, sure. No, it's like they're like raccoons.
Very much.
Raccoons or possums kind of thing. That's the sort of equivalent.
Exactly. They were a lot of the operations where we would either drive past or hunt where they were farming nearby, and they were trapping baboons like we trap raccoons. Like
Yeah,
that was the analogy I made. I
yeah.
was like, it's like we trap raccoons. They're trapping baboons.
Hmm. So obviously, Kucha Safaris either I don't know if you got into that or not with them, but they either own property or they lease property.
Hmm.
Um, and most of that property is behind a high fence.
Yes.
So, what were your thoughts about that? Because obviously that has a big stigma to it, and people in South Africa, especially Americans going to South Africa, they're like, I don't want to hunt behind a high fence."
Right. It was eye opening for me because I like at home here in the States, I am typically generally of that same mindset. Like
Mm-hmm.
high fences get some, I mean, they just kind of leave a bad taste in your mouth
Yep.
around here because I mean, and because there's a lot of you run into a lot of mismanagement of them. We don't need to go down that rabbit hole, but the just I was like it forced me that I was like there's a different way of thinking over here and there's a different way of life like because like the negative stereotypes and preset mindset that I had toward high fences is not even like in the ballpark where we were. They even told us, and you can obviously you'd be able to clear this up for me. They said that in many cases, like the government required them to do so. I don't know if that
Yeah.
true.
Well, there may be a requirement, just from a human wildlife conflict perspective,
Yep.
to keep it may be a fencing requirement, not like a 6 foot, 8 foot, um, requirement. But then, more often than not, because the animals are sort of a asset, an economic asset, you don't
Right.
want them poached. You don't want them taken out.
Right.
That's probably more of the reason why people high fence in South
Right.
Africa.
So one of the bigger properties that we hunted was 50,000 acres. And I because of the cottonmouth property that we hunted at Primos, uh, I could scale that in my head a little bit because Cottonmouth, our property on the river was 10,000 acres. I'm like, all right, this is 5 cottonmouths, and I know how huge that is. Also, they told me they had rhinos on that place, and that
Mm.
was one of the biggest reasons for the fence was because of obviously those
Yeah.
rhinos are
Yeah.
a target for some people that want
So
those
they're
for.
doing a bunch of anti-poaching.
Yep, correct. Yeah, and I wanted to see I wanted to see one of those rhinos so bad, and we saw the rhinos what they left behind after they eat all over the place. Never laid our eyes on a rhino, and that was the only thing that like I thought would be possible for me to see that we didn't see. Everything else
Mhm.
that was like on the list of things I just wanted to lay eyes on, I was able to do, but the
So
rhinos.
it didn't really feel. I guess the point. It didn't really feel like you were in an enclosure high fence.
I didn't feel like I was cheating. No.
Yeah.
Not at
Yeah.
all. 'Cause that's normally what it gets tied to here. It's like you hunt in a high fence, you're cheating. I didn't feel
Hmm.
like that. And the fact, I mean, it's like where we were in that valley, like that was every property we saw was
Hundred
fenced.
percent. Hundred
Everyone.
percent.
That's just how it is. That's why I was like, all right, I have to let go of my mindset from back home that doesn't carry over to where I am here. And
Yeah,
that's
and one high fence over 50,000 acres. It's just like you drive into the property, and you never see another fence.
mhm.
For 7 days.
Yeah. Well, man, so this is a whole nother subject, but when we got on to tracking a herd of giraffes, like we walked and we walked and we walked and we walked, and it's like, are you sure there's a fence on this place? Like, yeah, it didn't feel like that at all. It felt legitimate.
What did you think about it? I don't know if you even thought about this or not, because obviously, as Brad said, be ready to purchase a couple more animals.
Mm,
And for people who don't know, you can either depends on the place. So in South Africa, it doesn't really work like this because it's not a tag allocation. But if
mm,
you went to hunt in Mozambique, you'd have to tell them beforehand, okay, I'm interested in an additional species XYZ, because they'd have to buy the tags.
right.
But in South Africa, you don't have to buy the tags. And so I don't know if you had told them, like, I'm willing to shoot a hartebeest, or I'm willing to shoot a black wildebeest, or I'm willing to shoot a sable, okay?
Mm,
Or rather, here's the I think the most amazing part about South Africa that I hope you realized, but a lot of people don't, is that it's one of the few places in the world that you can truly hunt. And what I mean about that is that here, when you in September go to New Mexico,
mm,
you're not, and people are going to jump all over me, but you're not truly hunting, because you have a tag for a specific species of a specific gender.
uh,
When you leave the cabin in New Mexico and you come across a mule deer, you just go, oh, cool, mule deer.
yeah,
Or come across a turkey, oh, cool, turkey. But you're not hunting those, you're hunting a bull elk.
right.
In South Africa, you can get up, and to your point, you could start walking or start driving. And you have no idea what you're going to hunt that day.
Yeah, man, I was absolutely like one of the things I went on and on about was just like the amount of biodiversity they have in just that one place, just the amount of big game animals, you know? Um, Probably like the most fun, like it was all fun, but if I had to like narrow down my favorite parts, like my wife, she hunted a kudu, and that was so much fun. Like the PH, our PH name was Cobus. He was a great guy, and
Quibus.
oh,
Quibus.
Quobus, sorry.
Quibus.
uh, he he on like the first day, like the first couple hours, it's like a filling out process. It's like, what are these guys going to want to do? And like we did this first, we found the spot, and he was explaining that this area was just historically a good spot. He wanted to, kind of just stalk through it and try to find a kudu. And so we make through it, and I mean, we walk. I mean, it's like maybe a mile, maybe a little bit over, more or less.
Mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
he's like, "Is that good? Y'all good with that?" And I said, "Dude, I'll do that all day because that one little mile, like we saw ostriches, we saw warthogs, we were seeing all this stuff that I only ever looked at pictures of or seen in a video. And it's like, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not opposed to driving in the truck, but I feel like I'm seeing more and I'm
Sure, sure.
in it more. And so it took 2 days to get her kudu. We put on over 11 miles in those 2 days just of walking. And we like the experience of that, like what you were saying, and some of the stuff like we were so focused on, like we did shoot an impala in the midst of like trying to hunt her kudu, but like there were things that we could have shot, but we were just so
Sure.
focused on trying to get her kudu. But just the experience of
Mm.
that and seeing all those things, like it was like to this day, like I can close my eyes right now and I can just picture coming around one of those brush thickets and seeing that herd of kudu out there. And there
Mm.
was the one I'm talking about. It didn't even have the bull that she ended up shooting, but it was just like seeing these herd of kudu, and the sun was kind of coming because it was still early, coming up behind them, and they didn't know we were there because the wind was good, and I was just like, this is so amazing. But but yeah, there's just so much opportunity there.
Yeah, that's the thing. So much opportunity. And again, I hate to emphasize the point, but I have to. That is completely free roaming, completely free will, even though there is a high fence constraining in quotation marks these animals to an area.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, and it wasn't like, again, we're talking about 50,000 acres. It's not like it's a 1 acre pen. You know what I mean? Like, I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
I mean, there's some relative, there's some scale to that, but no, it's like I can't emphasize enough. At no point did I feel like it was a canned hunt or a fish in a barrel type of situation. I would have been supremely disappointed if that's what it was, but
Yeah.
it wasn't.
Yeah, no, that's cool, man. One of the things you kept texting me about, and we kept in touch, was you did something super controversial,
Yeah,
which is you went and hunted a giraffe.
I
And the
did.
only reason it's controversial versus an impala, and people are like, I don't give a shit about impala, is because of its iconicness, right? It's charismatic. It's this thing that's sort of super weird. If you've never seen a giraffe in person, it's like two different animals squished into the same body.
Yeah.
It's not supposed to be there, but it lives in the African bush and the southern giraffe specifically. And so here's the controversy that a lot of people don't understand. Giraffes have been talked about from a CITES perspective to be uplisted to like Appendix 2 and even Appendix 1. And we're like, what are you talking about? Yes, some of the subspecies of giraffe, specifically in areas like Kenya where hunting is banned, are in peril. And they need to be put on the CITES appendixes. But the southern giraffe has a population of like, I don't know, I'm going to get the number wrong. It's either 34,000 or 54,000. But properties like the one in Limpopo, and I've got another example where we did Success Untold in Limpopo, where they've got way too many giraffes. And the southern giraffe in the Limpopo province is the bastion for like, I think it's 72% of the entire southern giraffe population. And the reason the number is so high is because of what you just experienced, is the value that they bring to tourism, to seeing giraffes, but also hunting them.
Yeah, I didn't go over there like the kudu, like my wife's kudu.
Right.
We had made up our mind to do that. Like I just like it was like 2 weeks before we left, and it wasn't like Lacey is no stranger to dropping a hint when she wants something, but this is not what was happening here. We were watching a video, and she was just made this remark about how just beautiful she thought a kudu bull was. So I was like,
Yeah.
that's going to be a surprise. So we I did plan that. Like the giraffe, I didn't go over there planning to hunt a giraffe. That one kind of was one of those I'm glad I planned for more kind of things. Um, and then when it first got when they presented the opportunity to me, like we saw one, while we were out, and it was a big bull, and it was I couldn't remember the last time, because if you hunt, like I grew up hunting here in North America, right? And it's like I couldn't remember the last time, even though I still love the moments hunting here. Like obviously I love it, or I wouldn't keep going. But I couldn't remember the last time, and like something genuinely gave me pause You know what I mean? Like, the only thing I could liken it to is like the first time I saw a bull elk.
Mm.
Because it's like, you see this giant animal and you're like, oh my God. And
Did you, in the moment when you saw that bull giraffe, you were like, man, I want to hunt that? Or
I
was it
did.
more like, there's no way I want to hunt it?
No, I wanted to hunt it, but I looked at it no differently than when I see an elk and when I'm in awe of it. You know what I
Okay.
mean?
Yeah,
You
because
know what
a
I'm
lot of
saying?
people see that giraffe and like, oh, that's an amazing creature, and which is what you probably saw. But some of them also then take that next step and go, but it's not something I want to hunt. And I'll
Right.
take that. I'll probably never hunt a giraffe. It's not
Mhm.
something I'm interested in doing.
Right. I mean, and that's obviously that's fine. But it prompted the question, like I brought up to my PH about hunting it and about hunting giraffes in general. And that's when he started to explain that they had a quota on these properties. And immediately I was able to connect with that because we have quotas on, like here at home in Mississippi, we have through the Deer Management Assistance Program, we have quotas on does. I mean, there were properties that I hunted on along the Mississippi River where you would have to kill 50, 70, some of the properties 100 does a year. So I
Yep.
could relate with that. And then he explained even further that it's like if the clients don't kill them, like we have to kill them. Otherwise, I mean, within the certain quota, like
Sure.
to
Sure.
just to keep things in check. And then it was kind of one of those, I wanted to. I felt like I had to. And I knew it was controversial, like as far as which is why that picture with the giraffe will never see a social media feed.
Yep.
Um, but that, like I said, I don't regret it at all. It was an incredible
That was a
experience.
bloody tough hunt. The way that you described it to me, man, it wasn't like drive down the road. Oh, there's the giraffe. Get out of the truck, stalk it for 200 yards, and shoot it.
It was he yeah. He said I want you to know that Corbus, if I'm saying that right, he said we're hunting hard giraffes. And I was like, what do you mean? And he said the property we're going to only has like one or two left on the quota. So and that's when the trackers came into play, or like there were many times throughout the week where I was in awe of these trackers and what they could do. But if I had to point out one highlight, there was two trackers with us that day, that one named Tomas and Como, and they dry tracked a herd of giraffes for over 3.5 miles. And I know for a fact it was 3.5 miles because I was running a tracker on my OnX. Like I know how far we walked. And at some point we're walking in like waist high grass, and I'm like, Cobus, what are they looking at? He was
You
like,
know, it's like they see. It's like, you know how the only way I can describe it is, do you remember, it may have been too early for your time, but I remember like as a teenager, like a 20-year-old, they had those 3D pictures. Did you ever get that in America? Where it was,
mm-hmm.
you had to like get your eyes like right up front and then you had
Yeah,
to squint them and then the image popped out, right?
yep,
Otherwise it was just all
yep,
squares.
yeah,
That's the way that I describe it. It's like these guys see things differently
man.
just because they were raised that way, and it's like staring at a puzzle piece that just stands out.
It was so like Tomas, he would go and he'd find a tree and he'd break off a twig about a foot long, and he'd be walking over and he'd be bent over, and he'd have one hand behind his back, then he'd have that twig hand out, and he would just be, it's like he looked like he was sorting through blades of grass, and then
Mm.
he'd see one that he liked and he'd go and he'd point and he'd take off walking. And we do this, and we get to about the 3.5 mile mark, and Koba says Tomas and Como are fanning out. I was like, why are they doing that? They said the tracks are starting to disperse. I'm like, that's bad. He's like, no, that's good. It means they're probably close. We don't go another 100 yards, and I tell Lacey, I said, if they walk us into a herd of giraffes doing this, that's gonna blow my mind. Cobus leans out with the binoculars. He goes, "There's the giraffes," and there was a herd of about seven of them, and we tried to make a stalk on those. The wind switched. They ran off. Which, seeing a giraffe run, they look like they're moving in slow motion, but they cover a football field in two strides.
100%.
But uh, the coolest part, like I said, there was the kudu thing, but we kept up with that herd of giraffes all day, and I didn't even end up shooting one that day. But it was my favorite part of the entire hunt. Not even when I shoot one, was this last moment. It was like last hour of daylight. We find them again. The wind is good. Um, we had stalked them two or three times, had the wind blow it a couple times. So these giraffes, they were a little on edge, you know. So me and Cobus and Como, we crawl for over an hour. And like I'm like rolling my pant legs up because just trying to do because next time I go over there, I guess I'm gonna have to wear those shorts like those PHs do to make. But like literally like belly crawling, and the whole time it's not like you can hide from a giraffe. Their heads are, and so it's just you'd have to watch them and wait for their heads to go the other way. Then we'd crawl further and we'd crawl further, and we crawl to where we get up to a tree, and Cobus says, stand up, and there's a young female and a young male. I didn't know that at the time. I didn't know these were the age class I was looking at. I just see two giraffes, and they're like 60, 70 yards away. And I stand up, and Cobus is like, we're not shooting either of these, but get the gun on the sticks, get ready. And I'm just watching these giraffes, and they didn't know we were there. And just being that close, again, not trying to like over glorify the animal. I'm looking at it the same way I would an elk, but just being that close to those animals in their environment, I was just in awe. And I'm like, oh man, they're so big. I can't believe it. And Cobus goes, here comes the big bull from the right. And this thing comes walking through and comes out in the open and just dwarfs the other two. And I was like, oh my God. And then we ended up seeing one that we could shoot, but she was kind of back behind that bull, and Cobus was like, trust me, it's getting too late. Just wait. We'll do it another day. But that was like the highlight of my whole experience over there when I was hunting was
And
just
you didn't shoot that bull either.
mm-mm, mm-mm.
That's the thing, right? Everyone thinks it's just like, oh, you just go, first thing you see, oh, shoot that. Okay, next thing you see, oh, shoot that. Oh, next thing you see, oh, shoot that.
It's dude, man, like I can't explain. I mean, because again, I had been near giraffes prior to that trip, right? I've been to zoos, I've been to petting zoos, I've been to fairs. So you don't think about it being that wildly different. You're like, it's a giraffe, a giraffe's a giraffe. There was something about being where being where they're supposed to be. I'm the outsider here,
Mm-hmm.
and getting to, and the other stalks were cool, but again, they got wise to us and ran off. But in this little moment, they had no idea we were there, and just getting to watch them do what they would naturally do was amazing. And like I said, we killed a giraffe the next day, and that was great too. But that was the moment of the hunt for me.
That's cool. And that's Africa, right? That is classic Africa. There's just so many opportunities, so many spot and stalks. You never know what you're going to come across on a spot and stalk. As you said, stalking for kudu, an impala pops out. Okay, hey, that's a mature impala. You've got it on your ticket. Let's take that impala.
Mm-hmm.
You get to eat any of the animals?
Yeah, every night, man. Every night we ate everything. We had zebra, we had impala, we had
How good
kudu.
was zebra?
Zebra was my favorite.
I'm glad you said it correctly the second time.
Zebra.
Yeah, exactly.
Zebra and camelpard.
Camelpard. I like that. Nice job, Lake Pickle. You can become an Afrikaner, man. Quivers and camelpard. You're looking good. Camelpard, by the way, is giraffe, everyone.
Yeah, and I learned that does it Don Pronk, doesn't that mean show off? Don Pronk?
You may be saying it I don't know. Anyway.
Strong chance I'm saying it wrong.
Yeah, but camelpard is good because camelpard literally translated in Afrikaans means camel horse.
Yeah. Corvus was trying to teach me little bits of Afrikaans every day because I was interested. Obviously, I haven't kept up with much of it, but I do remember it.
So you ate it. You ate the giraffe. You ate zebra, kudu. You had it all.
Kudu was outstanding. It was all good. There wasn't any of it that was bad by any stretch. It was just if I had to pick out a favorite, it was zebra was number one. But yeah, gemsbuck. What else did we eat? We ate everything.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was fantastic, and just it was fantastic. Nothing but good things to say.
Anybody who wants to go to South Africa, you would say go.
10 out of 10. 10 out of 10. Like it's not like me making a joke. We quite literally 3 days into the Africa trip, me and Lacey were like, all right, what do we have to do to budget ourselves to be able to go again? Because it was amazing, man. The people. The other thing, and just to quick tidbit, like the pH is like ours was a guy named Cobus. He was a young guy. He was 28. Trackers, Tomas, Como, um, the pH, the tracker. Obviously, that's how they made their living. That was a source of income for them. But they loved what they did.
Mm-hmm.
They respected those animals. You could see it in the way they talked about them. You could see it when they were handling them. When after we had killed one, you could see them. I mean, just in the way that their mindset and the way they talked, everything. It was they were sportsmen about it with the same level of respect as some of the sportsmen that I respect here, and
Mm-hmm.
that was very enjoyable.
Mm-hmm. Uh, just for people's edification and knowledge, you didn't take a gun with you, did you?
I did not.
And no problems using their guns. Guns were sighted in. Everything's.
So when the first thing we did when we got there, we got to the camp, we got unloaded, got somewhat settled in, and then we probably got there probably 2 in the afternoon, and they were like, "We're not hunting today. We're just relaxing. We'll start hunting tomorrow." But we used that afternoon. They took us out. They had a range out there, and they had guns that we would be using, and so we were given a chance to shoot and see, if there for some chance, like both the guns that they gave us, like right out the gate, we were all comfortable with.
Mm,
But if you were like, if for some reason you don't like this one, we have another one. I mean, it was so yeah, that was seamless.
awesome. Awesome. Well, I'm glad you got to experience the homeland, man.
Yeah,
It's incredible place, incredible landscapes, incredible wildlife, incredible people.
absolutely. I did. I ate my share of biltong while I was there too.
Nice. I told you. I told you needed to eat your human body weight in biltong. I just
They,
built a biltong box downstairs in the garage, so I'm going to now start hanging big slabs of elk, and I'm going to
yeah,
cover it in biltong spice and make elk biltong.
and it was so good. We the first morning, Koba swung into this gas station and he said, "You need anything from inside?" I said, "What's in there?" And he listed off a bunch of things, but he said biltong, and I was like, "Biltong?" He was like, "You know biltong?" I was like, "I do know biltong." Yeah.
Outstanding, dude. Outstanding. I just actually introduced my kids to a bunch of like South African biscuits. I
Oh
found a
yeah.
bunch in Botswana and brought them back and said, okay, this is lemon creams and this is Eatsamores and here are Mari biscuits and here are Romery creams and here are all the biscuits that I grew up with. Well, dude, I'm so happy. I'm so glad that you had a great time. I'm glad your wife had a great time. And thank you for coming on here because I think a lot of people just have a perception around Africa. And, you know me, we've had a long history. But going there probably had a little bit trepidation, like, I just don't know what I'm getting into. And, probably everything that you had in your brain in terms of like, okay, this may happen, did not happen, and was probably, completely different in terms of what you were thinking.
There was on the positive and negative. I had negative stereotypes that were broken, and then I had positive thoughts that it was like one of those things. I've listened to you talk about South Africa. I've listened to other podcasts. I've read things, but I can't. It's one of those things where you can't fully appreciate it until you plant your feet on that ground and see it for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You can't until you see it for yourself and you experience it.
Mm-hmm.
And then going over to like again, just quickly about like my wife. Uh, she's gone hunting with me a lot. I've never seen her enjoy a hunting trip as much as she enjoyed this one.
Mm-hmm.
Like she started not only talking about how we could get back there, she started saying how she would be willing to give up all these other trips to go back on this. And she's like, that beach trip that I wanted to
Yeah,
do,
yeah, yeah.
we
Forget
can
that.
we can cut that out if we. And I was like, you're gonna give up a beach trip? I was like, you must have really liked this. She was like, I love it. I love
Yeah,
it.
and there's so
Okay.
many cool places to see, like the Eastern Cape and KwaZulu Natal. Like you've got different ecosystems with different animals in it.
Mhm.
Man, awesome.
Yeah.
All right, dude. Thank you, man.
Yeah.
Appreciate
Thanks
you.
for having me on.